Welcome to another episode of the PHNX Suns podcast. I'm Lindsay, that's Saul, that's Gerald, and that's Espo. Did you guys have a good weekend?
I did.
Yeah?
It was fantastic.
What'd you do?
Nothing.
That
Isn't
sounds
that the
perfect.
best?
Absolutely nothing.
The absolute best.
Love it. I've been getting caught up on my movies because I haven't been able to see a movie in a while since yesterday. So really bad play on Saturday night. Well, that was fun. It was Clue, but it was more the performance than the play itself. So
Aw. Shout out to the.
I had people in the play apologize to me for coming to see it. So
Wow.
that's how bad.
Yikes. Shout out to the Phoenix Suns for announcing everything for the most part on Thursday and Friday for us. So we still can have a weekend. So we're super happy for that one. Eric, are we good on audio? Should we keep going? Can't hear nobody?
I'll work on it. I don't
Should we
know.
continue to just talk about our weekend until we know our audio is?
How was it?
It was okay. It wasn't as good as the last trilogy. That was pretty great, but it was fine.
It says it's coming from your mic, not our mic.
Yeah. That where the human is starting to evolve again?
Yeah, actually, a
really?
little bit.
Are we getting any better, y'all? Is it?
Should we
better?
re-rack?
Yeah, we
Re-rack.
should. Once we do it, we'll start over again for sure. As long as we hear when we have to wait and hear from the chat.
Oh, no.
I'm drowning.
Is it better?
like we're
You guys got to
underwater.
tell us when
Oh,
it's
man.
better.
Well, they're saying the reverb is bad.
Better.
Audio
Oh,
is bad.
here we go. Here we go.
We are.
Hey, we're here.
There we go.
Ready?
Restart.
And 3, 2. Welcome in, everybody, to the PHNX Suns podcast. I'm Lindsay. That's Saul. That's Gerald. That's Espo. Did y'all have a good weekend?
It's fucking terrible.
That changed quick. Holy hell.
Took a turn.
They have nothing to do.
I saw a bad play and the actors apologized for coming to it. So.
Nice.
That's
nice.
unfortunate.
I was giving a shout out to the Suns for basically giving us a weekend by taking care of all their business Thursday and Friday for us. So we were available to, well, some of us anyway. It was a little bit chaotic, let's be honest. We love our golf tournament every year. We have breaking news happen on the golf tournament day. This year it was the Suns' turn.
At least
Last
this
year
one
was
wasn't
Cardinals.
mid-round. This one was before the round even started.
Yes.
So
Yeah, so that worked out well.
Gerald, Eric, and I broke many traffic laws to get here in what amounted to about 20 minutes. It was
You're not
pretty
allowed
impressive.
to, you can't admit
Nobody
those
saw me
things.
do it. I can admit
you
it.
can't admit those things on
Yeah.
live internet. Espo, what are
I
we
drove
doing?
really fast to get here on Friday.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. All right, guys. Well, let's dive in a little bit more on the hiring because it is officially official now. Mike Budenholzer is the head coach of the Phoenix Suns. Got a nice little penny there. What was it? 5 years, 50
$50
million?
million?
Mhm.
10 mil a year to coach this squad?
not a bad gig if you can get it.
Not a
No.
bad gig.
I mean, it's still Monty Williams' contract, but I think it'll get it done.
I kind of feel like somewhere Frank Vogel's sitting on a beach just laughing his ass off. Like, man, I really took them.
I mean, listen, there is something to be said about, I get it, these head coaches want jobs, don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
But there is something to be said about working in a field where you can get fired 1 year into a 5-year job and still continue to get paid for all 5
Hell
years.
yeah.
Yeah.
And millions of dollars at that.
I mean, don't we have that sounder? Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
I feel like if you were at the end of your career and like what would stop you from just really tanking that first year just to get the rest of the money? Like, I'm good. I'll take this 35 mil.
Who says that's not happening in Detroit right now? He's like, man, I really don't want to go to Detroit, but man, 100 mil sounds pretty damn good. Let me go fuck this up for a year.
I told you guys I didn't want to be here, but you kept throwing money at me.
Let's go.
This is all your fault. Well, Saul, you and I missed Friday's show. What are you thinking? Yeah, well, we were busy doing other things. How are you feeling about Coach Bud being the new head coach of the Phoenix Suns?
I mean, Holbrook's favorite son. Let's go. I'm down with it. Like I was looking at other candidates, but like I'm down with it. Listen, he's been a Suns fan his whole life. He's always watched the franchise from afar, and the fact that he's coming back home to try and give this franchise something that they've never had before, something that he prevented them from getting in the past. I don't have any issues with it. I think his offensive acumen is high. Obviously, this team, I think you saw, had flaws, but the flaws that you did not expect to come about were on the offensive side of the ball, and you just felt like they could have been even more efficient than they already were, despite the fact that they were kind of glitchy. And so I'm excited about this. I'm hoping for the best. I can't get excited about any coach to like a high level because you just never know how being a head coach is so complex. It's more than just X's and O's on the court, as we found out after the season. It's about relationships. It's about how can you get across to a player. When X player is making $300 million in his career and you're making 30, how are you going to tell him what to do? How can you relate to those guys and try to get them on the same page? And more importantly, how do you build a culture of success? And I think Mike Budenholzer has done that at every stop, Atlanta, in Milwaukee. And now he's going to come here and listen, he won a 1971 state high school championship. So what can go wrong?
We're on the up and up. That's for sure. That state championship, that's a whole nother level of coaching and basketball that we haven't experienced in the Valley before.
Dude played football, baseball, and basketball at Holbrook. Like, was a starting quarterback. Like, I mean, I know there's like 12 people in Holbrook, so if you're athletic, you got to do all those things. But yeah,
clearly somebody that has never played against Northern Pioneer.
No, I have not.
I mean, listen, I will say, when the news first broke, I wasn't feeling too hot about the situation because I know that Frank Vogel is a defensive-minded coach and Coach Bud is an offensive-minded coach, right? I know there are very drastic differences there, but it still kind of felt like the Spider-Man meme to an extent as far as maybe personalities and things of that nature. But over the weekend, I kind of just sat on it for a little bit, and I'm not mad at it.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at it. I think Frank Vogel was not set up in the correct way in the sense that I really think they brought him in thinking they weren't going to be able to move DA. And then they ended up being able to move DA and lost one of the main pieces that could have helped Frank Vogel in this situation. So he was no longer the right coach for the Suns. I think they were hopeful for that. I'm not saying that it would have happened.
There's so many
I think they were hopeful for it.
There's so many things with that statement that I want to get into.
Like what?
I mean, like, okay. If
you don't think so?
Frank, stand on the table and be like, no, you can't trade DA if that's how you really feel. You know what I mean? Like, if you really listen, Frank should have known what he was getting with both players. And if he really was adamant about keeping DA as opposed to Yusuf, there's a part of me that feels like they might have just obliged and just said, okay, well, let's see how it goes. You're one, especially if he's saying that, like, hey, he can be the anchor of our defense, like, and he can make this happen, like. But I don't think that that's what happened. I think they were like, hey, Nurkic is a better fit, and he was like, okay, like, and that was it. That's why he's sipping Mai Tais out in Cancun.
Well, that's
Cancun.
I mean, that very well could have been the case, or it could have been DA things soured even more over the course of the offseason.
Maybe.
It could have been. I do remember I got a one-on-one with Frank Vogel over the summer over the phone, and I was asking him kind of about DA, and he had been saying that they had multiple productive conversations about, the role he would play in the defense and also rewarding him offensively, because a lot of what gets lost in this conversation is, would DA have been happy here with the amount of touches he was getting, having to be fourth in the pecking order behind the big three? I don't know if that was going to be the case or not. Vogel was very adamant, we're going to get him involved. We're going to keep him involved.
Hell, Nurk got 45 touches around the rim. Shit. Of course, DA would have been happy.
Yeah. So I feel like he was very gung ho about DA and thinking that they could make it work. But I honestly feel like he probably got overruled, or, it wasn't that much of a factor for him. Like, I need to have DA as my starting center. I think that kind of speaks to the place that DA's value and effort was perceived at that point in time. But I do think, I don't know. I think there was a lot of disconnect in terms of what the front office wanted, what Vogel wanted, what the roster wanted.
Kevin Young wanted. I think there's a lot. And Saul, to your point, I don't think that was ever in Vogel's character, really, to stand up on the table at any point.
I know. That's why when he did it in the locker room, it didn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, they had no respect for
They're
him.
like, what's this motherfucker doing on the table right now?
Who is this guy?
Dude. What are you doing?
You're going to break a hip. What are you doing up there? You should have just thrown the chairs instead of stood on the table. I'm telling you. But I'm excited for Bud. I'm going to fully lean into it. I decided this weekend I'm going to fully lean into it. You had a defensive-minded coach. Now you have an offensive-minded coach. Like you brought up in the playoffs, I guess we weren't really surprised, to be honest with you, after the way the season had gone. But heading into the start of the season, we all thought, offense that's our bread and butter. We're not going to have any issues in that department. Yeah. I mean, we kind of had a couple of issues here and there. So,
yeah, and I think he's obviously more offensively geared, but I do think his defenses have been pretty good over his career, over the 10 years, 5 with Atlanta, 5 with Milwaukee. He had a top 10 defense in 7 of those 10 years. So obviously a lot of that comes down to personnel and the guys that he had in Milwaukee especially, but he is capable of crafting a better defense than I think people are giving him credit for too.
Yeah, and Lindsay, you bring up and I've heard it, kind of, is this Vogel 2.0, right? And, I had kind of thought that when we initially heard his name too, but when you look at it, 17 years he spent as an assistant under Pop, the 4 rings he got there, his success in Atlanta, which was surprising with the roster, winning the title in Milwaukee. I feel like he comes in with a better pedigree than Vogel necessarily had, even though on the surface you look at it and you go, okay, 1 championship, that's kind of what Vogel had. I also found, it's an interesting dynamic, but I just think he's a different guy than Frank was. So.
Yeah. I do also like the idea that when he was with Milwaukee, he didn't have a quote-unquote traditional point guard either. And this team also doesn't have a quote-unquote traditional point guard. And it doesn't really appear as though there is a path and or maybe desire to go get one this offseason. So that's positive. Got experience in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that he's like top 40 all time in wins regular season, top 25 all times in playoff wins, like he has success. As much as people focus on the flaws and the playoff adjustments and places where he's gone wrong, like being able to go to 2 different locations and stick there for 5+ years is not a guarantee in this league by any means. So hopefully he's able to come in here and do something similar where his teams are consistently winning 60% or more of their games every season.
Yeah.
Hope so.
I just hope everyone, I know we talked about this on Thursday, you and I, Espo, I just hope everyone buys into it because everyone has their own opinions, including all of us here on the show and in the chat, of who would be the best option for the Suns, who should lead this team, what coaches would be better, what coaches would be worse. And I'm sure the players also have their opinions, right? So I just hope everyone, top to bottom, buys into Coach Bud and gives him the opportunity to lead the way that he needs to lead this group.
Yeah. I don't know if he's going to be, the future of the franchise. But I'm pretty confident in saying that I feel like he will be a better option than Frank Vogel was. How much of a better option? I don't know. But I do think that they'll perform better next year.
Lindsay,
Go ahead.
You brought up the player's choice of a coach, right? And on Friday, I had said with Gerald that I had heard, some rumblings, and I had a source that said Kevin Durant was pushing for Chauncey Billups. Well, I got a source even closer to the situation that confirmed to me that was not the case. So if there was any concern with buy-in from that standpoint, not accurate. So,
well, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, that does make me feel better because those rumors were a little bit concerning that would we have a little bit of a disconnect there as well. But it seems like everyone will give him a fair shot. And then I guess if we see any issues this upcoming season, then we'll know it's maybe not a head coaching issue.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Or all of the above. Who knows? I mean, we thought last off season this was going to be fun too. So
Now that we've all had a weekend to sit through it, what grade do you give this hiring for the Suns?
I'd probably say B+, A-. I think it's fair to question why he wasn't the choice last year. And you brought up when we talked on Friday, maybe it was because he wasn't ready to coach. Maybe he wanted to be selective about where he was going, given the loss of his brother.
Yeah.
But I think it is fair as a Suns fan to wonder, okay, why didn't we have him last year when we got it wrong with Frank Vogel, and now we're moving on a year later? So I do think there are still a lot of questions to be answered in terms of, is there going to be buy-in on the court in terms of how Bud likes to play versus how we know the big three likes to play?
I think it's a B. It's not a, it's not going to be a hire that everybody's, over the top excited about, but it's not something that makes you feel like utter despair is on the horizon. So it's right in the middle for me.
I'd B+ from a basketball standpoint. I give it an A- when you add in the hometown guy makes good. Grew up, watching the late 70s, early 80s Suns team. Big fan of Al McCoy. There's something to be said for that to add to it from an intrigue standpoint.
Yeah. So far in the chat, we've got Freddie, who has this as a C at best. Ashley says B+. Scotty says A-. Joe says B-. And Ted with the incomplete grade.
Yeah, to be fair, a lot of these are our initial reaction grades because we're not going to know. I love when we give out trade grades or like draft signing grades and stuff like that, because it's like we're totally going to change these a year from now once we actually know. But this is just off the cuff.
I'd be terrified to look what we gave the Frank hire last year.
Well, I mean,
our free agency grades were worse.
It's also one of those things, too, where you want to try and understand what the front office was thinking, right? Mm-hmm. Like, in theory, what should this team look like with the free agents or under this head coach? It doesn't mean it always comes to fruition, though.
Did we grade that last year?
We did. We should go back and
I don't know if we graded it.
Well, I think we were all fairly positive with it by the end. I think we were all beaten into submission by the end of that. Remember how long that coaching search was and how many people were just like, I'm taking my name out or this.
Yeah.
I think, what did we go, 3 weeks? Something like that, two weeks?
Yeah, and I think somebody in the chat brought up, I think Budenholzer turned down the Suns or didn't want to speak with them at the end of it. So, yeah. But I feel like with Vogel, a lot of us were like, it's fine. I think it's a good hire, but it's not a great hire. Like, none of us felt like, ooh, this is a sexy, flashy kind of hire.
Yeah.
I mean, our other option was Kevin Young, and none of us were sold on that either.
Yeah,
that's true. Also, people are like, didn't Budenholzer get interviewed in 2018 or deny an interview in 2018? Yeah, I'm like, well,
that was a different time.
Wouldn't you?
That was a different time.
Yeah, and he took Milwaukee.
That was a different time.
With Giannis.
Giannis or whatever this was. And I'm pretty sure they did offer him the job and he turned it down. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that James was part of that front office too. So
Booker and a bunch of randos right now. Like, or Giannis. I'm going to go with Giannis.
I mean, I think we all can agree we would make that exact same decision 10 times out of 10.
But we got Igor, so it was all okay.
And we set him up for failure too. Look at us.
Did we though?
I think we did.
Did we though?
That can be a conversation.
Oh man, had Isaiah Canan fucking starting at point guard. He kind of did it to himself.
Yeah. What were his other options?
That's facts.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did he have on the
Shaq
squad?
Harrison. My bad.
Could have drafted the guy.
God, those are the dark days.
Could have drafted the right guy for him.
Oof. That's why I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. That is for another day.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. I need you guys' help.
Okay.
That was Lindsay's prime, by the way.
I did. I
2018.
I peaked in 2018.
Yeah.
I did.
All downhill.
Wow.
Down. It's not even like a small decline either. It was like, those videos where you see the kids just flop,
dropped
flop,
off.
flop down the slide. That's what it's been like.
To be fair, you had COVID in the middle of that. Like, I
And you
mean,
were locked in the
all our
transformation
primes
center.
died a little bit in COVID. Let's be honest.
Okay, I need your guys' help.
Okay.
So I'm debating between two parlays tonight between the Thunder and the Mavs, and I need you to tell me which one you're going for. Plus 800 or plus 675.
Always
Okay.
plus 800.
Big numbers here. The plus 800 is Luka to score 30 plus points. Yes. Luka 3-pointers made over 2.5. This is on the BetMGM Sportsbook app, by the way. Luka to have over 8.5 assists. The Dallas Mavericks spread at a minus 1.5 and totals over 214.5.
Yes.
Okay, so that's plus 800.
I like that.
Or we've got Kyrie Irving points over 22.5. PJ Washington rebounds over 6.5. Derek Jones Jr.'s 3-pointers made over 0.5. And the money line for the Mavericks at a plus 675.
Ooh,
I like the plus 800.
yeah.
Plus 800?
I don't like relying, and this is no slight on airplane mode, but I don't like relying on
That one.
Derek Jones Jr. to accomplish anything in your pecking order there. If
I mean,
you're-
I get it. Plus 800. Not too bad either.
No.
That's going to be your parlay pick of the week for our friends over at the BetMGM Sportsbook app. If you guys have not checked them out, you are absolutely missing out because not only do they help you out with pre-built same-game parlays, but they also have a lot of really cool kind of like, what are those words? Like prop bet type things? You've seen us take them throughout the season. Espo's hit big on a whole bunch of them, which is the only reason why he won our betting competition throughout the season. But either way, he still won. So if you haven't checked out our friends over at the BetMGM Sportsbook app, now is a great time to sign up. And sign up using the bonus code PHNX. When you use that bonus code PHNX, all you got to do is place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through the BetMGM Sportsbook mobile app of at least $10, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if the bet loses. Not only do they have basketball, but they also have Major League Baseball and a really cool Grand Slam jackpot happening. It's a weekly bet and get promotion, and that happens Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All you have to do is place a bet or a wager for any player to hit a home run every weekend, and you could win up to $50,000 in the daily prize or share of the prize with every other winning bettor. You can check out the show notes for full details, and now you can listen to Shane talk about the disclaimer.
Bonus bets expire in 7 days. One new customer offer only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY, 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus only. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Bonus bets are non-withdrawable. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, North Carolina, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
Get stuffed, Ontario. I know we're supposed to. We got Manscaped next. I'm not even going to try to.
I was wondering where you're going to try and
Yeah.
go. Where were you going to try and go?
I
with
was just
that?
going to say
what's
we're
the plan?
usually supposed to share personal experiences, but I really don't want to on this one
Okay.
for everybody else's. So I'm going to share a little bit with you because I'm just going to read this, all right? Because somebody wrote this and put a lot of time into it, and just
You
bear
deserve
with
to
me.
hear it.
Hey there, beach babes. Are you ready to soak up those summer vibes and unveil your ultimate beach bod? Well, you're in luck because our friends over at Manscaped have you covered from head to toe. With the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, the ultimate all-in-one grooming kit is set to have you looking and feeling your
Wouldn't
best.
it be uncovered from head to toe?
I'm just reading what they wrote for me here. I don't want to put too much thought into it. Trust Manscaped and unlock the confidence you need to turn heads this season. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code PHNX20. Let's make this summer the smoothest one yet. Oh, so yeah,
Just remember,
again,
everybody is a beach body.
yes,
There you go.
except for mine. Get 20%.
Everybody is a beach body.
Everybody.
Rock your beach body. Get 20% off and free shipping with that code PHNX at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code PHNX20 at manscaped.com. The summer sun is here to stay, so trust Manscaped to get your pubes at bay.
That one always gets everybody hung up on.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to the guy that I met at Walmart 2 days ago, last week. He came up and he caught me off guard. He was like, Saul. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, I love the show, man. What are we gonna do? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna do. He was like, all right, man, keep up the good work. And he took off. And I was like, all right. All right. Well,
I
nice
thought
to
you were
meet
going to say he asked your opinion on Manscaped, which would have been amazing.
No.
Broseph in the chat said, my son wants the Manscaped tool. He's 17, LMAO. Is that too early to start?
The hell no.
What's wrong? Get it for him. Code PHNX20. Come on,
listen,
Broseph.
when a kid finally grows a full pubis, you gotta fucking take care of it.
Next topic.
Gerald.
So I had an interview today. So a lot of people have been wondering about Mike Budenholzer, what he's going to bring to the table, how he's going to fit in Phoenix.
Does he use Manscaped?
Not that one. So I talked to my guy, Ty Windish. He hosts a Milwaukee Bucks podcast, and he gave us about 10 or 15 minutes of our time to answer some questions. So here we go. What's up, everybody? I am here with Ty Windish of the Eurostep podcast and GSN. Ty, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Gerald. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. A lot of people don't know this, but Ty and I used to work together way back in the day, back in our fan-sided Hoops Have It days. So I'm really glad to have him on and get the Bucks perspective of the Budenholzer hire. So Ty, let's just start off right off the bat. What should Suns fans who aren't as familiar with Bud know about him?
They should know they're not going to glean much information from his interviews. I think that is the number one thing. I think I'm going to be watching. Have they scheduled the intro presser yet?
Not yet. Hopefully it should be sometime within the next week. Yeah.
I can't wait. My favorite Budenholzerism, he says, a lot, but I think my favorite is once they asked him what he likes out there. It might have been preseason, like real early with the Bucks group. And what do you like out there, bud? And he's like, well, they're getting up. They're playing 5-on-5. It's like, yeah, that's literally every game. Like he is. I don't know if maybe it was just a Bucks thing. Maybe it'll be different in Phoenix. But he is very close to the vest on what he will say. You really have to watch and pay attention to what goes on out there with Bud. I mean, he'll talk about players and praise them and stuff. I will say one of the positives is certainly not a coach who would ever throw a player under the bus. I think fiercely loyal to make sure he's not going to do anything like that. A lot different in that regard than the Bucks' current coach, Doc Rivers. But Bud is, I think he is resilient to his own schemes. Like he has a way of doing things, which we'll get into, that he really likes to stick to. And he is not very talkative. So those would be like my super broad level Bud things to expect for Suns fans.
Okay, so some good and some bad in there for me, the guy who likes to ask very thoughtful and detailed questions.
If you focus on scheme, maybe you'll get something, but he, you gotta get a little lucky, I think, too. He a man of few words during his interviews.
Okay, so we'll see how that goes, but I did want to get your thoughts on the fit here, because one thing that I've been hearing a lot is that, and you look at his teams of the past as well, you mentioned this, that he has a certain way that he likes to play, probably on both ends of the floor. We know with this Phoenix Suns team, they were very 3-point resistant. They have 3 mid-range gunners, 3 mid-range maestros, and Bud's teams have always ranked, bottom 5, bottom 10 in the league in their frequency of shots from that range. There's also the accountability side of things in terms of that might be part of why Frank Vogel was let go, struggling to keep those 3 big names accountable. So I'm curious your thoughts on what to expect from Bud in that regard, in terms of his fit here, liking to play one way that might be run a little counter to what his stars like. And then the accountability side of things, is that going to be a clash, or is that kind of what this Suns team needs at this point?
I think it's certainly what they need. I don't know. It could still be a clash. I think toward the end of the Budenholzer tenure in Milwaukee, it's so tough to judge, right? Because he's really in Atlanta, had no true superstar. And in Milwaukee had Giannis, who it seems like is one of the easier stars to deal with for a head coach, right? I mean, he was defending Jason Kidd out of the door. He defended Bud the whole time. He was on Adrian Griffin's team until that was untenable, and now he seems like a Doc fan. So I think you'd have to be really bad for Giannis to be out on you as a coach. I think the team kind of fell in line with that. Although I will say at the end, there were players like Jay Crowder, Bobby Portis, who had some comments about maybe the culture or the connection with Bud by the end. So I do think that's something that going into this job will probably be on his mind a lot in terms of, I need to make sure I'm forging these relationships with these star players. Where it will get interesting, I think, is the offensive end. I just looked before we started this. The Bucks under Bud, the lowest they ever were 8th in 3-point frequency per game, just raw threes per game. And they were top 5 every other season. They were never first, but they were always 2nd through 5th, except for 1 year. I do think so. He has these boxes on the floor that he will probably put up, or at least did with the Bucks during like camp, basically, to let everyone know this is where you should be. I think it'll be a little different because, of course, he built that offense around Giannis, and there's no Giannis. So again, it's hard to do one-to-one parallels unless he had taken a job in New Orleans, in which case I think he probably would have used the exact same setup. But I think in Phoenix, he may do something similar because you can still there's still a lot of immense scoring gravity from these 3 guys, right? It's just in a different place. But I will imagine like Bud's idea of great offense is there's one action that's pulling toward the rim and opening up space around the rim. The dunker spot he really adapted, and that became a hallmark of the Bucks too. But he's going to want the floor more space. So I do think that's going to be one of the things to watch is like, let's say one of Bradley Beal or Devin Booker is not in the action. Bud's going to want those guys out in the corner or above the break, certainly, where they're able to shoot, and same for KD. So it's going to be really interesting to see, like, there's not the one obvious guy like Giannis. I mean, the Bucks had great players around him. There was always, and of course, Bud never coached Dame there. There was always like a clear delineation. Like it's the Giannis machine and everyone fits in. It's not really like that, which almost gives you some more freedom, but less structure. So I'm really interested to see how he builds it. But I do think he's going to demand more 3-point shots overall from the Suns, not just from their role players. And like that push and pull is probably going to be one of the most interesting things to watch early in his tenure of just, okay, how many threes are they actually shooting? Are they bought in? Are they doing it or are they not? Because I do think he's not a mid-range guy. Like he'll concede mid-range on defense. Chris Middleton had to kind of fight to be able to take those mid-rangers early. They had a conflict in the first year. It's true. Like Bud was like, no, don't take those. And Chris was like, hey man, this is part of my game. I need to do this. So I think he obviously going in is going to know that these 3 players are going to do that, but he will also be like, hey, I'll let you do some of that, but you got to take some threes too.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how that dynamic shakes out because everybody's focusing on the off court, accountability, leadership, all this stuff. But I think on the court, in terms of playing styles, that's where I'm going to be looking more often to see if they're able to kind of find that compromise, that happy middle ground. Because you're right, like Bud's teams have historically played at a faster pace than the Suns have recently. They've gotten up a lot more threes. But I am curious if you had one area of concern for this hire. Like I think Bud was probably the best coach that they could have possibly landed on the open market in terms of his experience tailoring his system in multiple places, getting winning seasons, winning a championship. But if you had to point to one area where you're going to be keeping an eye on of concern, other than maybe the 3-point thing, what would that be?
I think I have one for both ends. So offensively, I think it's Bud's philosophy with the Bucks at least was play random, which I think worked out. And I think the players liked it for the most part, where they had like he doesn't call sets as much in like flowing half court offense. Funny thing is, people always say Bud can't. Dumb people always say Bud can't call plays. His ATOs always rank toward the top of the league. I think you're going to see some beautiful ATOs. But in rebound, bring the ball up the court, he's not one to call sets very often. He likes to instill concepts and let the players decide. And while I think that can really work, and if the 3-point thing and everything catches on, it might be great. I did think for this Suns job, someone who maybe runs a little bit more rigid offense might be necessary because you saw too many possessions where it was like, okay, someone's isolating, right? It's another isolation. We're not using these 3 players enough together. So I think striking that balance is going to be crucial on offense of, let's just not let guys take the shots they want. Let's make sure we're working a little better. I think the Bucks offense in the playoffs under Bud, a lot of bad shots, a lot of shots that weren't ideal, a lot of Drew Holiday pull-ups, right? Like the kind of stuff you don't want to see when you have Giannis and Chris Middleton on the floor. So I think that's going to be a big thing. And then defensively, I just look at who's probably starting for them, assuming it probably Grayson has a good shot, Bud guy there. If he's going to drop, and we'll see what he does, but if he's going to drop, who is going to be that screen navigator? Who is going to be the Eric Bledsoe, Drew Holiday role? Because you don't really see, with the 3 stars and Grayson Allen and, Royce O'Neal or whoever, a player who you're like, oh yeah, that guy can get across the screen and stay with it and take away the middies. So I'm really interested to see all of the defense, but especially to see, like, do they find a screen navigator? Can they keep a Kogi? Can he do that? But that was a hallmark of the Bud defense. And I don't see maybe a Kogi, but outside of him, a great fit for that role.
Yeah, and the Kogi, like, he's great defensively. He can navigate those screens, but offensively, is he playable? That's always been the question with him. I am curious. I wanted to get your thoughts on what to expect from a Mike Budenholzer defense. Obviously, this kind of depends on personnel, and the Suns are different from the Bucks in that respect. But anything that you saw from your time in Milwaukee or his time in Milwaukee that you can point to, like, yeah, you could probably look for this in Phoenix too.
I mean, I think they'll want to do a base drop, and I actually think part of the personnel works. Like, I think Nurkic can probably do a reasonable job at that. I know his numbers within 6 feet of the rim were actually really strong this season. He contested a lot of shots there and held opponents to a low percentage. So I'm not laughing at that concept like many are. The other thing that I think makes it make sense to me is Durant is such a good defender and underrated and has such a frame that I think Bud could probably take some of the concepts that they use defensively with Lopez and Giannis and apply them and do a good job taking away the painted area. And I think that's the Bud specialty on defense. He'll always give up mid-rangers, which can bite you against some opponents. Sometimes the threes too. But his defense is he really works to take away the rim. Because I think it's a good philosophy. If you're not consistently getting to the rim, it's hard to sustain good offense through a whole game or through a whole series. But again, the question is, how do you guard the perimeter if you're dropping and giving up that space? So, he started to switch more later with his Bucks tenure. For like the first 2 years, it was really just all drop, and teams were able to take advantage. When they added Holiday and they kind of, some players like PJ Tucker played a big role and Drew and saying, like, we need to be more adaptable. They started to switch a little bit more, but he likes to have a certain set defense, or at least did in Milwaukee. So I would guess it will be dropped. But again, I'm very interested to see the modifications because, of course, Giannis was pretty important to the drop too, even though he wasn't the drop big, he was the big helper. So I think Durant can do some of that. Obviously, you don't want him working as hard as Giannis was in his early Bud years in Milwaukee. But I'd be fascinated to see, like, does he just switch from the jump? Because that has not been a Bud thing at all, but maybe he has to with this group.
Last question for you, Ty, and I think I can kind of glean your answer based on your responses so far. But if you're looking at this Suns roster in terms of what a Budenholzer system could use the most of, like, everyone keeps talking about the Suns need a point guard, the Suns need a point guard. They have 3 lead offensive initiators, but I am curious, like, do you think the Suns team, they have very limited means to get these things, by the way, but in terms of like a wing stopper or a ball screen navigator or just a 3-point shooter, like, what kind of stands out to you in terms of, Bud would really be cooking if the Suns were able to add this type of player over the summer?
Yeah, I think they're good on shooting. I mean, I think with their 3 players, and then Allen will be around, we assume, unless he is traded. But assuming he's around, I think, he obviously comfortable in a Bud scheme, knows what to do, and just knows how to play with these 3 guys too. So I think he'll have a big role. I think it is just a defender, a perimeter defender, a navigator of sorts. I mean, a wing stopper works too, whatever it may be. But I do assume Bud's going to want to drop. I think he's going to look at Nurkic and see, I think this guy can help. He's a big physical defender, right? You're not going to, if he's got that advantage in the drop, he's going to be able to wall off the rim pretty well. But you need to be locked in and committed, and you need to be able to navigate screens. I think there's going to be just more impetus too on, Beal, Booker, these guys of, like, you got to do it some as well. I mean, no one's expecting Bradley Beal to be Drew Holiday or Eric Bledsoe defensively, who's an all defensive player, but I would expect that there's going to be more drop coverage, and I would expect that they'll probably target with these vet minimums or draft picks or whatever resources Phoenix does have, players who profile as being able to do that, whether it's a veteran, whether it's a younger player, but just someone who's quick, can navigate screens and, stick with those offensive players. So, a mid-ranger contested from the rear or side, not that bad to give up. Wide open ones, they can add up in a hurry, especially if then help is coming and threes are opened up. You can tell I've lived through this several years in a row. So I think that screen navigation, perimeter defense is going to be the number one thing they need.
Absolutely. Suns fans, his name is Ty Windish. You can follow him on Twitter at Ty Windish. If you're interested in the Bucks perspective, make sure to go check out the Eurostep podcast they have. It's one of the best podcast names that I've seen with the double entendre. So I love that, Ty. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Thank you. I always say when the content's as good as the name, we'll be rolling, but appreciate you having me on, Gerald.
Shout out one more time to Ty and Gerald for bringing us that great perspective from the Bucks side of things. Are you guys really excited about the NBA playoffs?
I am.
I'm so excited about the NBA playoffs and how cool it would be to attend a game
right now.
I'm just waiting for the NBA to finally release the schedule for Game 5 of our first round series.
Of Suns
between the Suns
Timberwolves.
and Timberwolves.
They're taking forever.
I mean, seriously, I just wish that they would go like, come on now, what are we doing here? So I could get my tickets on Game Time and attend an NBA playoff game.
Damn you, Adam Silver.
I feel like it would just be super fun to experience that of the NBA, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. And prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. So next year, when the NBA playoffs are back in Phoenix, we'll all be able to go attend a game together thanks to our friends over at Game Time. Or if you are one of the lucky few who get to travel for some NBA playoffs, or maybe unlucky, depending on how you view it, live in another state but support the Suns, you can still go and check out some NBA playoffs. And right now, Game Time wants to hook you up, and they take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets because Game Time is just such an easy app to use. You know, you basically get paid to be a procrastinator because you can save some money on Game Time when you buy last minute tickets. But they also want to hook you up when you use the code PHNX. Right now, you can download the Game Time app, you create an account, you use the code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account, redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And listen, real quick, I know I made a joke about the NBA playoffs and them not being in Phoenix anymore, but Game Time can hook you up for all types of sports, right? We could talk baseball right now in full swing. You could find comedy shows on there, concerts, all types of things.
Mercury.
So you don't have to wait until next year to watch NBA playoffs.
Childish Gambino coming on September 14th. Let's
Yeah,
go.
all kinds of good.
Okay.
NFL schedule drops this week.
Wednesday, yeah.
Look, or you can go see my Nuggets play tomorrow in Game 5 up in Denver.
Let's go.
Only $135.
I really thought you were about to go into another Manscaped meeting. I was like, nobody wants to see your Nuggets, man.
That would have been so awful.
Close shave in those first two games for my Nuggets, but you know what? I had to stop and get gas somewhere other than Circle K, and I'm not going to say who it was. But my wife let her car get so low on gas, I had no other choice, and it was just an awful experience.
Yeah.
I did not get to save any money. I did not enjoy the experience whatsoever. I am only going to Circle K. Even if I have to push my wife's car.
I love our people at Circle K. Why you try to make it seem like pumping gas is an experience in itself at different places?
It is.
It is.
Their GS,
Totally.
their
Okay,
GSTV is so much better.
Maybe pumping gas might be a universal experience in all
Yeah,
places.
that's what I'm talking about.
But
Because that's all he's talking
everything
about.
else is
No, the
different.
convenience store is a completely
I
different
didn't
game.
save my money. That was my big thing.
You didn't get to put his
And-
number in and feel validated.
Yeah, I didn't feel like a part of anything when I got the gas.
He didn't have his inner circle there cheering him
Okay,
on.
okay.
And let
Do
me
they
say,
normally do that when you roll it?
They do. It's part of the ESPO.
Must be in the white neighborhoods.
Yeah. I live in the same neighborhoods as you. Anyways, no matter what race you are, you can become part of the Circle K Inner Circle. Doesn't
get an
matter.
email. We're gonna get an email.
America's Third Stop has got you covered. It's a free membership program, so no matter what economic status you're in, you can be part of it too.
We're gonna get another email.
And guess what? You can save money 3 cents after you save 25 cents on your first 5 fill-ups. And then you get to the ESPO level, and you're going to save 5 cents per gallon. You're going to save some damn money, and then you get some savings when you go inside the Circle K for the amazing food and the amazing the drinks, the Polar Pops. You can get a Polar Pop any size right now. 69 cents.
Nice.
Thank you. There we go. That's what I was going for. So make sure to download that Circle K app today. Sign up for the Inner Circle. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations, no matter the neighborhood. Visit CircleK.com for details.
All right. Our chat is on one today. And you
Man.
know whose fault it is? You know whose fault it is?
Stephen A. Smith.
Stephen A. Smith's fault.
Mhm.
Got everybody all riled up on this
Oh,
Monday.
boy.
And it's like, sir, that's for Fridays.
The chat has been fighting with each other all show long.
It's entertaining.
Same team. But here's what Stephen A. Smith said that got everybody all riled up.
Kevin Durant in Phoenix is a problem. It is a problem. We don't see it because the stats are there. Him and Booker average 27 points per game and what have you. But they say Kevin Durant is never happy. They say that he went more than a month without even talking to the head coach. They say that he doesn't look happy there. And all he wants to do is play when the game starts and tip-off time arrives. But when it comes to ingratiating yourself with your teammates and getting along with everybody and stuff like that, he just lives in his own world. He's not hated. He's not despised. He's not doing anything negative. He's not being somebody that's two-faced and behind people back doing stuff. No, that's not who Kevin Durant is. But keeping to himself. Why does that matter? It's similar to what he was doing in Golden State before he ultimately departed, which is what was driving Draymond Green crazy, which is why they ultimately got into it on the court in that Clippers game and what have you. Because you hear stuff, you hear about the level of unhappiness, et cetera, and you get tired of it because when you don't want to talk and when you don't want to answer questions, you don't want to lead in a very visible way, well, that forces other people to have to step up and take on a level of culpability that they don't want to stomach. And so because of all of that stuff, that's the untold stuff that's going on in Phoenix. There's more than that. Make no mistake, it's not all on Kevin Durant, but that's a big, big part of it, which is why you've got to disband this group. They're not a big three. They're big three in money. They're a big three in name, but they ain't a big three in level of production.
They say that Stephen A. Smith's hairline is receding because it's ashamed to be near Stephen A.'s mouth. They say that Stephen A. Smith is so loud that it disturbs SportsCenter 3 doors down from the First Take set. They say, I hate they say. Either you have a source and you say sources are telling me, or not. They're like, they say is the biggest cop-out ever, all right?
Well, they say you can do that in sports journalism.
Oh,
now,
they
so.
say.
Don't they say that they is implied to be sources?
I don't know. In the way this is, it's like they say, like it's,
people are saying, like
yes.
it's very generic. But no, listen. We've talked more about leadership and Kevin Durant and locker room dynamics than I think a lot of us would have liked to at this point. But there does seem to be this angle that when a team with this much talent loses in the first round or loses in the playoffs in general, we always do this. We always pick them apart. And especially it feels like that happens to Kevin Durant a lot. Like everywhere that he's gone the last couple of stops, people want to see him fail. Like they want to see the superstar heavy teams fail compared to the homegrown talent like we built through the draft. We developed these young players. Like we've seen it here in Phoenix. People liked the Suns for a little bit. And then when they started to add superstars because it was a place people wanted to play, suddenly they're this evil, bad super team that everyone needs to root against. And it's like, no, this is the longest tenured franchise in NBA history that hasn't had a title. Like, this is a team that everyone should be able to root for in a secondary manner at some point. But because they have all this superstar talent, we're focused on tearing them down. So I think Kevin Durant that reputation has been exacerbated. And it especially is going to happen when a coach gets fired. But the whole big three comments, those feel off base to me, even though we can acknowledge that, yeah, they needed to be better in the playoffs.
KD is, I don't know if this is really the right word, but he feels much like an anti-hero where people are looking to tear him down because they have their minds made up as what a true leader is, right? They look at the LeBrons, the Michael Jordans, the Kobes, like guys that are, they can be demonstrative on the court, they could impose their will, and they don't make any mistake about it, right? Like they do not apologize for being who they are. Whereas KD is very much a quiet superstar. Like he just goes out there to ball, do his job, and move along. And because of the status that KD is at, and in terms of basketball royalty, and what a leader is supposed to be, people automatically are going to put both those two things together and think that because you're at this status and this height in the NBA, you also have to be a premier leader. And sometimes it's just not like that. It's just not like that. And I'm not even saying, like, listen, especially, and I'm talking about just from the optic standpoint, from what we can see on TV, what we can see on the court in front of us, right? None of us are behind the scenes in the locker room when it's quiet. None of us are in the practice court before the media is allowed in to see what's actually going on behind the scenes. We don't see what's happening on the bus on the way to the airport or on the airplane flying to the next city, or all these small little things where KD might take those opportunities to actually pull somebody aside like a bull and be like, hey, remember, yesterday you did this, whatever, blah, 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 right? They don't see any of that stuff. And I'm not saying KD's like this phenomenal leader by any stretch of the imagination, because he's had plenty of opportunities to kind of stand up for himself in that regard. And he has a couple of times, especially when it comes to like Charles Barkley. But I don't think it's fair to place this expectation on a player to be this ultimate leader when he's never really shown that demonstratively to us ever. OKC, Golden State, Brooklyn, here, doesn't matter. Like, he's always been just about ball. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The only reason why there's something wrong with it right now and at his other stops when they haven't won the championship is because people want so much from him. And because they're not getting it from him and he's not feeding it to you, or he's not giving you what you want, they immediately resist and they want to attack him. And that's the narrative that's been pushed around KD.
So this is tough because I feel like there's got to be some things going on behind the scenes that would continue to feed into this a little bit, right? Or at least it had to have happened at one point in time. And I'm not saying that it's not overblown and extra dramatic because it is KD. But I also think that a lot of times when people are talking, the people who are behind the scenes, who are on those buses and in those locker rooms, because let's be honest, that's where a lot of the stuff comes from, is it gets leaked from people in those rooms and spaces. I feel like a lot of times the things that are leaked, or at least the things that are leaked and then said publicly, are always the negative things. KD might be doing that with Bol, and I would be surprised if he wasn't doing that with Bol. But even if they told him, like Stephen A. Smith, they're like, hey, KD does this, that, and the other with Bol and all the young guys, and it's been really great for our squad. But one thing I don't like about him is that he's a little bit introverted. All they're going to do is run with the introverted comment instead of showing both sides of the coin. And I do think that's where maybe some of this stuff continues to be regurgitated over and over and over, where it's like, okay, maybe that was something that happened when he was younger, but doesn't mean you have to keep beating the same drum.
Is it just me, though? Like, especially Stephen A. First Take, the ESPN storylines. First, it was they're saying that Devin Booker wants out. They're saying KD's this. Like, what? Like, why is this the fixation right now? I get it. The team underachieved, but it's such a weird. Like, have you ever once written in something you said? They say that no, like it's sources close to, or this, or from this camp. Like, the they say seems like such a cop-out, hide behind kind of thing, or even if you say, look, it's a rumor, I don't know if it's substantiated, at least that's more upfront with it. But like Stephen A. stuff, I get it. I get the act. I understand what he's trying to accomplish. And obviously, I guess he's succeeding because we're talking about it. So.
They can't come out and be like, this exact person told me this about anybody. That's not how this game works.
Yeah, it's not, but it's also there's a middle ground between, people are saying versus like actual journalism, that type of thing. And I get it. Like, but we're the only league that covers our sports league this way. Like, we're the only league that constantly looks at star players. Okay, well, he's bound to be happy at some point. We kind of like almost start manifesting it in a way like, well, if this doesn't happen here, look for this to happen. Like, we're always thinking about what's going to come next. What super team is going to be assembled, what superstar is going to want to leave. And I feel like that's the case with KD. Like, when you are a player of his caliber, and especially getting to be his age where he's not going to have that many cracks at a title left, it's always going to be a title or bust year. And if you don't get that title, it's always going to be, well, is he unhappy? Is he going somewhere else? Is he... this reputation that he's getting his coaches fired left and right, which is unfair.
Yeah, because
all of those things are going to come to the light.
That one's not true. I mean, you look at it; it's just that doesn't hold water. That one's ridiculous. Like,
I don't know. I mean, There is a part of me that is like, KD is a superstar, and this is what comes with being a superstar.
It is.
It just is. Like,
Yes.
it's not like LeBron doesn't get his fair share at times. Maybe not from the national media as much, but just from fans in general, right? Like,
Well, I mean,
I feel like the wealth in this situation has been spread around to all superstars.
sure, and we focus on we tend to focus on the toxic and the negative more than the positive,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But like, I don't know, did you guys see over the weekend? I think maybe it was even Thursday or Friday, where like Michael Jordan opened up a $10 million medical facility, and KD like was like tweeting about it, like
Yeah.
that was really cool. That was cool stuff, right? Like,
Mhm.
and KD himself has done a ton in charitable work over the course of his career. He has the Kevin Durant, I think it's Kevin Durant Children Foundation or something like that, where he's donated millions and millions and millions of dollars around the world, in Africa, and other places as well, and not to mention some of his home places in DC and in Texas and Austin and stuff like that. So like, we always focus on the negative. That's what the NBA world almost is. It's all about the viral stuff. It's all about the trending stuff, and it's never about like, can we balance it out? Like, it's never about that. And it never will be about that, because you have to be a miraculous individual just to get a little bit of love in the positive lane. Everything else is always going to be negative, and that's just the unfortunate nature of the media space.
And I do feel bad for them in those situations where it's like, I mean, even when you look at LeBron, right? People just love to hate him, just to hate him. And I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who feel the exact same way.
Some
about
people
Kevin
hate him
Durant.
just because he's a billionaire.
Yeah, and Devin Booker as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they all get their fair share
So
of hate.
they say you're correct with all those positive
I
things
mean,
about
I'm
Kevin
just saying,
Durant.
They say.
We do have a super chat from Psycho Blue. Psycho Blue said, Basketball Cthulhu points out that national media preying on the Suns' total downfall and subsequent misery is proof of their fright of his freedom via Suns championship. They said KD's freedom?
No, I think it's Basketball
I think it's
Cthulhu's
Dr.
freedom.
No,
Yeah.
Basketball Cthulhu.
Because if we win a title,
Cthulhu's.
Cthulhu will finally be free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Will we all?
It's very-
Thank
will we
you,
all be?
Psycho Blue.
Felt, that whole phrase felt very January 6th-ish to me. I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah,
Especially spelling praying.
Oh,
if the national media and Stephen A. Smith's word have you feeling some type of way, might I recommend our friends over at OG's?
Hell
Also,
yeah.
if you got them, take one right now, because you're going to feel even more of a type of way in the
Man, I
next
took
segment.
an RSO last night. Oh, man.
The Sleepy Time one?
My God.
I feel so. Here's the thing about OGs, you guys. They have something for everyone. So if you're just looking to like take a little bit of the edge off in maybe a social setting because you're a little anxious, they got the mini OGs, which are perfect for something like that. If you're looking to go out and have a little fun and party, they got stuff to cover you for that. If you're looking for a good night's rest, they have stuff for that. Like,
you're looking for a
literally
good
so
night.
many different things.
RSO, baby.
Yeah,
Let's
so
go.
many. So
I'm
many
not going to
different
say it, but I mean, I'm saying it. You know what I mean?
And you can rely on OGs for the best tasting gummies as well, whether that is the Big OGs gummy, which is a mega version of Peg's Raspberry Orange RSO gummy. I mean, raspberry orange sounds like an absolutely delightful gummy. And it is also one of the company's most popular products because it's perforated into 10 slices, each with 10 milligrams of THC for a total of 100 milligrams of THC. They also have the OG's Natural, which is a vegan gummy, and that's available in a sweet clementine flavor. So if you want to learn more about OG's gummies and where you can find them, head on over to ogsbrands.com. As a reminder, you must be 21 or older to enjoy OGs, and we do ask that you enjoy responsibly. But if you're curious, just go on over to ogsbrands.com. They've got a lot of educational stuff over there to help you out too.
Have you guys gone through the loan process recently?
No.
That stuff is a pain in the ass. I just went through that. But our friends over at Desert Financial make it super easy to go through that. They are financial experts that take care of everything that you need in it. They've got advice. They're willing to walk you through the process when it comes to loans, investments, savings, checking accounts. They will take care of you because they've been doing it for 84 years here in Arizona, and it means something to them. Much like Mike Budenholzer, they're native to Arizona. So they want to help you out as well. So join the credit union that is committed to giving back to the community that you live in and sharing the success with its members. I got a special deal for you. Real simple, Not a lot of work. It's the easiest $200 you're going to make this week. Open a free checking account online and you're going to get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200 and you can get that $200 that easy.
There you go. $200. Who doesn't want that? So I know that there's a lot of chat around the big three, KD's name specifically. But I don't think KD wants to go anywhere. But if you ask Ochocinco, maybe he does.
After
Right.
Golden State, he went to Brooklyn.
Brooklyn,
What makes you think he want to go to Miami now?
because I talked to him. I talked to KD. And I know KD gonna see this, and KD can attest to this. And you could talk about it tomorrow on First Take. I talked to KD. KD and I had a lengthy conversation. Listen, I'm not into basketball, and people like KD and LeBron and some of these other players that I know, they confided me, and I asked if it was okay to talk about it tonight on Nightcap, and just so happened, boom, it comes up.
Right.
And he said, you know what, he would have no problem coming down to Miami if it made sense.
Chad Ochocinco. Calla de la boca.
What he
Por
says,
favor.
when he says, I don't know basketball, but they talk to me. That's what I'm like. Well, yeah, I don't believe anything you're saying at this point. Like,
But they confide in
they
him. Espo.
confide
I
in
asked
me.
him if I could say this, and he said, "Yeah." He didn't tell me that everyone was gonna clown me for it, but okay.
Yeah, let me just put it. They say that ain't true. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, Pete.
Stick to football.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much. I think it was who was it? Was it Eddie that came out on Twitter and was saying
Yeah.
like, no,
It was like a
no,
boardroom
Chad.
thing.
He was just talking about going to Miami for a boardroom thing.
Yeah,
that's what he was talking
something
about.
like that.
Let's just say it like it is. Head injuries are real in the NFL. All right.
Oh.
I will say though,
Damn.
what I will say
Hmm.
is, if KD ever does get traded to the Miami Heat, I'll apologize to Ochocinco for sure. I'll be like, you had it before all of us even thought about it.
There you
That's
go.
not happening.
Kudos to you. So we'll wait for that day though. But you know, we might be waiting a long time.
I'm not even going to say. Is Ocho even going to remember that he said this if it happens this summer? Like,
I don't know. I don't know.
oh,
Hey, Eli noticed that Gerald finally got his glasses for the show in the final minutes before we say goodbye.
Yeah, these are prescriptions, so I'm trying to keep
Gerald
them on
got
the
his
edge of my
glasses.
nose, or I'm going to go blind.
And by his
Throw up.
glasses, I mean Eric's glasses.
Great.
Oh my
Great.
gosh.
Gerald's going blind because of the prescription, and Eric can't see because he doesn't have the prescription. This show will end about as well as it started.
It's fine. As long as they can hear us.
But that doesn't mean that we
shit.
won't do some Trade Machine Tuesdays around Katie to the Miami Heat. 'Cause
Oh,
why not?
boy.
No, we're
Why
not.
not?
doing that.
Why not?
Hey, we forgot Vet Minimum Monday.
We could also
No, we'll start them a little bit later.
we could also go ahead and nix KD to go into Florida because the goon's right. Pro tip: pot ain't legal in Florida.
Oh,
Ain't no way KD's going to fucking Florida if it ain't legal.
That's a deal breaker.
there you
That
go.
is a deal breaker.
There you go.
100%.
Investigative reporting at its finest,
Yes.
right there, right there. All right, we do have a super chat from Nicole. They said, "Dang, Lindsay, you've got some glasses competition. Saw looking good in those glasses.
Oh shit!
Hey yo,
Thank you.
I know.
You guys brought out the stylish glasses
we
today.
I
did.
mean, we tried.
We didn't even plan it, you guys. Swear to God, we didn't plan it because obviously Gerald would have
I
showed up
miss-
with some of them on if we had.
Yeah, I don't have any stylish glasses, but I would have showed up in glasses.
I just
I missed the
wear 'em every
memo.
day.
Yeah. Jovan sent us one as well, and they said, "Do you guys think that Katie gets extended this summer?"
I'm gonna say no.
That's a tough one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. We don't necessarily even know who's going to be making the decisions in the front office by free agency. If some of these reports,
you
that
know?
they're going to change. So, well, there
I'm
was.
just kidding, I'm
there
kidding.
was they
Front
say,
office
they
move.
say,
They say.
aka Gambo said that they're looking at making front office changes.
Well, we did a little bit, right? Didn't Fizz move into the front office?
No, not
He
officially.
was
Not
he was
officially?
offered a front office role, and then it was reported later that he's expected to decline that offer. So
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
Come
we'll
on,
see.
Lindsay, get with the news.
interesting.
Call
Gerald,
turn.
would you like a front office position?
No thanks.
Okay. So
No.
Wait, time out. Bullshit. Bullshit. That's so much bullshit.
I meant with us. I didn't
Jared,
mean with the
they'd be
Suns.
like, Gerald, you know, we would like you to be like the assistant GM or something like that. Gerald's like, nah. Then they slide the contract in front of him. He's like, oh, well, yeah, I'm good.
I was just trying to be like Fizdale.
Assistant to the GM.
There you go. Assistant to the GM.
All right, guys. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
I'm going blind.
Take the glasses
You want
off,
to
Gerald.
you want
Take
to
the
trade?
glasses.
Mine are a lesser prescription.
Sure.
If you really hear it.
Let's give it a roll.
Oh, here we go.
Oh,
All right. Well, there you
wow.
go. Even Espo was like, oh my God, Eric
Yeah,
is blind as a bat, apparently.
I wear prescription every day.
You
And
can
this
s-
is like,
You
whoa.
can see everybody's soul right now. Is that what you're saying?
I'm seeing auras. This is weird.
Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow with another show at 3 p.m. And until we see you tomorrow, hit that thumbs up button, rate, review, subscribe, follow the show on social at PHNX_Suns. You can also give me a follow at Lindsay Smith AZ. You can follow Saul at Saul_Bookman. You can follow Gerald at Gerald Bourget. And of course, you can follow Espo at Espo. Espo, take us home.
As my parents told me, stop doing that. You'll go blind. Ahoy, ahoy.
We all silly like the mayor.